Hello, I'm Bookface, and welcome to the first in a series of videos kind of similar to Artbreeder, except the AI I'm working with is different. So some of you may know about Chimera Painter, a new AI that Google has made for AI purposes. Basically, you use simple colors to paint monsters, and then the AI turns that paint into meat, and sometimes other things, but mostly meat. So let's talk about the creatures that I have made. The adorable, wonderful, not at all horrifying friends. It doesn't have that wondrous feature where it calls them saved children like an Artbreeder, but these are still my children. First up, first creature I made, Soar. He's a bit of a wonky dude. Has a little trouble balancing, but when he gets moving properly, kind of moves like those skull crawlers from Kong. His teeth are very widely spaced out, but perfectly intentionally designed. And despite not having eyes, he still knows where everything is because of his massive nose. Next up, we got Chompback. You might be wondering, why is he named that? And I might be wondering, do you actually have to ask? Basically, he's got a big old mouth in his back. The front mouth, that's a decoy. He can't eat through that, but that's not the dangerous one. No, the way he attacks with the back mouth is basically rolling over onto somebody and just consuming them. He can eat just about anything, and there isn't really much of a limit. Additionally, he can partially camouflage, not fully, but partially. As you can see, his tail is sort of camouflaging into the ground just a little bit. And as for other features such as the antler of sorts, the horns, those are again just diversions to distract you from the giant back mouth you should be worrying about. Next up, we have Baphomet. A bit of a questionable name, but also I feel like it's the only one that fits. So he's got these bat wings, you can see. It's kind of ape-like in structure, and he can fly short distances, kind of like a flying squirrel. He can't fully fly, but he can certainly glide quite a bit. So because he thought mouth and teeth were the most important, they take up the entirety of his face. So his eyes, therefore, ended up getting placed on his horns. Gives him a nice wide range of vision and really just frees up the head to that mouth. He can unhinge his jaws, but his jaws have like 3 or 4 different hinges they work on, so his mouth can get almost as big as the rest of his body, which, can be useful on occasion. Next up, we have the Crack Drake. So, I may have been trying to design a dragon, but unfortunately that dragon design decided, hey, what if I did crack a lot? Because of this, he is very alert, very fast, and quite chaotic. His teeth, unfortunately, unlike the Alabamasaur, were not supposed to be as spaced out as they are, and his tail is kind of blunt. He has very large front legs and kind of short back legs. He can't stand on 2 legs, but he's just kind of fumbling, stumbling a bit. You know how it is. Additionally, he has 2 wings, which he can fly with, but if he's not careful, they just kind of fuse together for a bit, in which case he kind of has to wait for them to unfuse to fly again. Next up, we've got Hekudu. So, I was trying to just make a man, a little dude. It did not entirely work out. So, in the creation process, I foolishly didn't understand how eyes, ears, or noses work. So, instead of having a nose, he has 1 giant nostril in the front, and he's got ear holes, but no ear skin on them, so they're just kind of ambiguously hearing things. And his eyes are stretched to their limit. He can see very well up close, but further away, he's kind of blind. He also has his little tiny horns, but they're mostly vestigial, except for the fact they can shoot lightning, which is a little concerning, but don't worry, he's a sweetheart. He also doesn't brush his teeth a lot, but they seem to be fine. That looks fine to me. Next, we got NomNom, who named himself. He's kind of like a Pokemon. He's got big old mouth, and he's a giant pile of flesh. He's kind of like the Blob, but with a mouth. So he was actually created in the process of trying to create a different creature, but something about him just sort of stood out to where I couldn't just leave this in the process. So can't see, but he can hear. He's got tiny little ear holes actually inside his mouth, like in his cheeks. If you opened up his mouth and look on the inner cheeks, you'll just see a bunch of ear holes, kind of tryptophobia-esque. And if you look real close back on his uvula, there's actually a little nose. I don't know how he smells with that, but I bet he smells terrible. But yeah, NomNom, good boy. Surprisingly fast, considering he doesn't have legs, arms, or any forms of appendages for that matter. Next up, we have Dragmall. The process of his creation is what created NomNom. But basically, he wanted to be a lot more mobile. He grew some sharp teeth that he could bite people with, grew big front arms, massive feet to pull himself along to drag him, and he decided, you know what, I don't like the look of that guy with no eyes. I'm gonna take all the eyes. But he therefore lacks a nose and ears. years. Those kind of went all to NomNom. His horns actually release toxic spores for some reason. I don't know entirely what they do, but they're not fun, so stay away from those. Next up, we have Polly. Polly loves to fly. I honestly don't even know why he has legs, because Polly almost never lands. He's just always flying through the air, and sometimes doesn't even seem to flap his wings. He just kind of flies. Wings are very fleshy, and they can expand like a lot. They can just grow to 3 times their size and like completely envelop somebody, including Polly. A little horn on his beak is kind of explosive, but hasn't been tested out too much, thankfully. He also has a bit of a horse head. I don't know exactly why, he just kind of does. Things just kind of happen here. That's just how things work here. He likes to swoop down on people from above and pick them up as a prank. Unfortunately, he doesn't realize that dropping people from many, many, many feet up or miles up can be a not very good prank. Next up, we've got Monstrosaur. He named himself after Monstrosaur from Ben 10, and I mean, it's a good reference, so I accepted this. He's got a very, very long neck, and he kind of swings it like a giraffe. You ever seen giraffes fight where they just slam in their face into stuff? He does that quite a bit. He's got a very long, fleshy tongue, but it's not the kind of flesh you'd expect from a tongue. It's almost like leathery and very dry. He has very flat teeth for grinding up whatever to eat, but he's certainly not a vegetarian. His little arms don't do a whole lot, but he does tend to hold things on occasion if he's thinking things through. And while his legs seem kind of awkward looking, admittedly, he is surprisingly fast, and he is very determined. So if somebody were running away from him, it would not end well for them, because they'd have to stop eventually. And lastly, we have Piranaconda, named after the absolutely wonderful movie. He can change the length of his body by just magnitudes. His average length is about 20-25 feet, but he can get to over 100 feet if he chooses to. His mouth can open an alarming amount to where he could swallow an elephant if he felt like it, hypothetically. He's got very sturdy spine ridges on his back that just they aren't sharp, but they're very, very solid. If he gets like nervous or wants to fight, then he can curl up most of his body and swing that, and it's just, oof. You know the ankylosaur, how it swings its tail? Yeah, this could bit more, because it's got whipping power too. His eyes are a little ill-defined. Despite the fact that they seem to just kind of be sockets, he can see perfectly, and I don't entirely know how. His teeth, unfortunately, also didn't come out very snake-like. They're more human teeth, which, I mean, fine with me. It's just, some people might have a problem with that. And there we have a few of my chimera children that I've created with AI. I really like this. Very fun, weirdly calming to me. Honestly, I feel like calling this calming makes me sound a bit like a serial killer, but you know what? I'm fine with that. If you like this video and my children, please leave a thumbs up, comment down below, and subscribe. And if you're looking forward to more of these little dudes, let me know, and I will see you next time. Bye!